Welcome back to another podcast with Blunt Talks with Gina, where you get the raw, real, and honest truth, whether you're ready for it or not. So, we're back with our favorite guest, Jenna Chittum. Welcome back to the show, Jen. So, we're going to get into a fun topic today. A lot of times we struggle to adopt a new habit or a ritual or a practice. It might be something like your eating habits, could be going to the gym. And oftentimes we don't recognize that the why behind it can really impact the way that we feel when we do that practice and whether it's going to be sustainable. But we also have a relationship with every single thing that we do, whether we realize it or not. So, Jen, when you came to me, your relationship with food was very different than it is now. Your
Right.
relationship with the scale is very different than it is now. And same with exercise and really a lot of different things, even yourself. So, I wanted to ask you if you could tell our audience a little bit about where you were about 6 years ago. We can start with your relationship with food.
Yeah. So when I came to Gina, I think it was like 8 or 9 months postpartum.
Mhm.
I had just done a show and I was nowhere near ready for this show. Looking back, I just wanted to do it for kind of a bucket list and then obviously fell in love with it. So kept doing it.
Yeah.
But that's a different story for a different day. How I got there was very unhealthy. I had tracked macros in the past, so I knew I needed to be eating protein. I knew that I had to have, certain ratios of nutrition, but I thought that like basically starving was the best option, especially with how much weight I had to lose. And what I didn't do was educate myself further on like postpartum health
Yeah.
until further down the road. But the relationship with food was not good because I was focusing on eating so little. And so while I was meeting a protein goal, which was also too low, I thought it was good at the time, but also too low. I was focused only on meeting that protein goal because I was like, okay, I know I need protein, but I
Mhm.
can't eat that much. So I
Mm.
would genuinely, I would eat just like boiled eggs, chicken, shredded lettuce, pineapples.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was traveling with my son's dad, and we were in West Virginia, like out in the middle of nowhere. And so
Mhm.
when we would go to the grocery, that's all I would get. And even he would kind of speak up, because he would try to go out to eat or something, and I would take my food.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Babe, you can eat something. Like it's okay." And I was like, "No, like I have a goal. I'm trying to lose weight."
Yeah.
And
And what
I've
is even in prepping for a show? At that point, you were just trying to lose weight.
No, and so I already was just setting myself up for a disaster. Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, but then I was like, "Oh, I wanna do a prep." And
Yeah.
so I met this coach, and we won't name names, obviously, but at one point, I was on, like, 800 calories for, like, a very extended time and not dropping body fat,
Mm.
and doing lots of cardio, lots of intense training. And I just thought that I was supposed to feel bad. Like, I was like, "No, you're supposed to feel like this right now. You're not supposed to feel good right now." And when I came to Gina, poor Gina, I was very open and honest about everything. I was like, "I'm 8 months postpartum. I just lost 40 pounds," all this. And like, I was thinking, I'm telling this badass coach like my credentials, like
Yeah.
I'm doing good. I'm
Yeah.
only eating this much food and I've lost this much weight. And she was like, "Okay, well, the first thing we're gonna do is give you more calories."
Yeah.
And that sent me into a spiral. I was like, "Oh no, I don't wanna eat more." And she was like, "Well, you can eat less." So, the only way we have to go is up, and so that's kinda how it started, and I had so much resistance to eating more
You
for a
saw
long.
food as like a weapon almost.
Yeah,
Like there was scarcity mindset with food and almost like a fear. Like you
yeah,
were afraid of eating. You were afraid of food and you
mhm.
saw it in terms of calories.
Yeah, I didn't have, like, carbs or anything until I, like, got with you. So, like, from the time my son was born, maybe, like, a free meal here and there, and my free meal would be, like, a fourth of a burger or something. And even
Yeah.
then I would have so much guilt
Yeah.
for having like that's probably like what, 4 bites or something. And I would just be like, "Oh my gosh, no, I shouldn't have eaten that." And it would like keep me up at night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
so
is kind of a side question. I don't remember. You probably would have, I feel like you probably told me this, but how long did you breastfeed? Did your body stop producing milk when you were doing that?
so I was able to breastfeed for 6 months.
Hmm.
And I took like vitamins and like things like that, and I thought that that was like
Enough. Yeah.
gonna sustain my breast milk. But I did kind of have a light bulb because Silo stopped at like 6 months, and I wanted to breastfeed for an entire year
Mm-hmm.
or even beyond that if he needed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when that happened, I was like, "Oh, like I must not be like very healthy." And so that light bulb like came on, then but I cared so much about just like not looking the way that I looked. It
Mm-hmm.
was I mean, that's really hard to admit too, because it's like you need to care more that your breast milk supply is drying up, right? But
Yeah.
that's how far gone my mindset was with wanting to be, and I wanted to be muscular. I still had carried, quite a bit of muscle from just training all the years I trained,
Yeah.
but I was so focused on being small again that I was like, well, we'll just push that thought past and we're gonna keep doing
Yeah.
what we're.
So justify it for the
Yeah.
result. Yeah. So you're doing everything just to look a certain way.
And
The the reason you were eating what you were eating, the reason you were doing cardio, the reason you were training, everything was to achieve a certain look.
Yeah, nothing was like, okay, I want to be healthy, I want to have a better mindset. And at the time, I thought that I was doing well with those other areas, and but it was for a look. It was not for, I wasn't enjoying the journey. Like I was going towards a destination. And even when I started with you, I told you I was like, this is how I looked before I had my baby. This is what I look like now. This is what I want to look like in the future. But even if I can just get back to that body, I'll be happy.
Hmm.
And now thinking about that, I'm just like, no, girl. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy that genuinely eat like triple or quadruple the food I used to eat. And I look how I've always wanted to look, even in
Yeah.
seasons and leanness and different phases. Like even right now, just being in a reverse and having a little more substance to my body and not being so lean. Like it's what I always dreamed of looking like. And it's nothing how I looked when I was starving myself, you
Isn't
know?
that crazy to think? That thought doesn't cross my mind very often, but when it does, it's like, holy shit, the way that I look now, it was my dream body for years. And it just seems so unattainable, so out there. And I
Mhm.
did not believe that I could actually achieve it. And when you don't believe that you can achieve your goal, that is part of the root of self-sabotage. It's typically your identity and also the belief, which is also tied to your identity of not being good enough or not capable of achieving something. You're going to end up self-sabotaging. So I had to like really overcome that to get to where I am now. But yeah, you just put me off on a little side note because it's really cool to actually pause and realize like, damn, I did it.
Yeah. And as your mind, gets primed and changes throughout your journey of training and learning about nutrition, your goals change. And so now I was really strong then too somehow. I don't
Hmm.
I was pushing quite a bit of weight, but I also, and this is probably another podcast, but I also wasn't training for my physique. And so I wasn't happy with my results because I
Mm.
wasn't training for my like for bikini.
Yeah.
Like my quads were huge and I was still training quads, which there's nothing wrong with big quads, but that's not what I needed for my physique, right? And so my mindset was always, I'm never going to look like that.
Yeah.
Even like your IG and like your physique has transformed so much, but even like seeing your physique, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that's bikini. Like I knew what I needed to look like. And I was just like, I'm never going to look like that. And I would regularly say that to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The things we say to ourselves are so fucking crucial.
Mhm.
Detrimental sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the first thing that we can tell our audience is if you really want to achieve your goal, there has to be a big part of you that believes that you can achieve it. And it's okay if there's a little voice in the back of your head saying you're going to fail. That's just the ego coming in with fear. But if you in your gut know that you can achieve this goal, there's two voices in your head you get to pick which one to listen to. But that's where your relationship with food was. You kind of got into your relationship with exercise. Were you doing cardio to burn calories or refresh my memory? Because it's been a while since we talked about old Jen.
Yeah. Ooh. Um, kind of a difficult topic there. But
Yeah.
I was doing cardio to strictly lose weight, and yeah, I was like looking to see, how many calories did I burn in this session? How many calories am I burning a day? I was logging everything to the T, which some of those practices are good, but my intention and mindset behind it was not.
The why.
My
Yeah, it
my
goes
my worth
exactly.
was tied to the scale. My worth was tied to my fitness pal. My worth was tied to the treadmill, you know?
Yeah.
And it was even to the point where it damaged my relationship because I cared so much about like being at the gym and my food and like Silo's dad, sometimes he just wanted to like have a nice dinner with me without me just picking apart every single little thing. And like, yes, like for prep, there's a time and place for things like that. And the people that love you will understand that for anyone that's in prep out there. But this, I wasn't even in prep. And he would try to take me on a date and it would just be I would just be a nightmare. I mean, I'm just gonna admit it. I'd be like, well, I can't eat here because of this, and then I can't do that. And then I would stress about, what was like on my plate. And he was like, you've been dieting for so long. Like, I think it's okay if you get something you want. And I would like get so
Freak
defensive.
out.
And, no, it's not, and so it became a very unhealthy obsession and it wasn't even productive. Like the way I was doing things,
Mhm. It
it's
wasn't
like
even working. It
I
wasn't
was,
working. That's
it
the
wasn't
funny part. That's the funny part is a lot of times when you do have this crazy relationship with food and the scale and exercise, it's not even working. And it doesn't make any sense. And the other thing that you mentioned is tying everything to your worth. And even that's a false reality because a lot of times we are unhappy with ourselves and we're unhappy with ourselves to our core, but we don't really know why. We haven't explored that. We haven't sat with ourselves. We haven't processed our shit. And so we look in the mirror and we also recognize we're not happy with our body. And our body is a reflection of our work ethic or our discipline and part of the way that we love ourselves. And so we can look in the mirror and be like, that's the reason I'm unhappy. And then we put all of our confidence, all of our well-being and happiness, and we attach it to a look or a number on a scale. And then we tell ourselves, well, when I lose 20 pounds, then I'll be happy. Or when I lose this belly fat, then I'll be more confident. In reality, you're never going to be happy if that's the mindset that you're staying in.
and
It's
there's
always gonna be
always
you're gonna always gonna find the next thing.
yeah. And that just made me have a little thought. There's always joy in the present moment. There's always joy in this season of life that you're in. Like whenever I was trying to drop the baby weight, I had so many good memories with Silo. I had so many good things going on. And
Mhm,
I think that's one of my biggest regrets from that time is like not honoring myself. Like I just had done an amazing thing. I gave birth to my son. And that's why I had extra body fat. That's why I had looser skin. That's why I had, milk and like my body had purpose. And
mhm.
I was just like, why do I don't want to look like this. I was so focused on that external look that I couldn't and fully be present and enjoy even just Silo being a small baby. In which I did. I do have good memories and I enjoyed it, but I could have been
More
so much more
present.
present if I wasn't attaching my worth to how I looked, you know?
So what advice would you give to mothers out there that maybe just gave birth within the last year that are really frustrated with their body, not happy with their belly fat, not happy about stretch marks and cellulite? What
Yeah.
can we do in those situations? Or what's a maybe even just a reframe of the mind or thought process that might help?
Yeah, so first of all, having a physique goal is good. And knowing that you want to chase a healthier physique is good. But chasing just that look and tying your self-worth to it, it's gonna drain you. And knowing that even if you are a year postpartum and you're not exactly back where you want to be yet, just know that your body is still, it takes up to a year or even sometimes more for our bodies to even our hormones to be regulated. And if you are stressed to the max about how you're looking, you're trying to lose all this body fat so quickly, like quicker than the norm. I wanted to lose, I mean, I would have lost 20 pounds in a month back then if I could have, and that's not sustainable at all. So
Mhm.
I think just knowing that your body it has a purpose right now, and your baby is not worried about whether you have abs or not. Your baby wants mom to be healthy, your baby wants mom to be happy, and they can feel your energy. Like, if you're restless, if you're stressed, if and that's when I would actually give in sometimes because I could feel that Silo just, like, wasn't happy, and I'd be like, "Okay, like, we can just relax, like, it's okay." If I was trying to do a workout in the trailer and he needed me, and I would be like, Hold on, baby, mommy's almost done," and then I'd be like, "Okay, no, like, he needs me right now." So I did
Mhm.
have conscious moments, but I think going back to what you asked is just know that this is a time to connect with your child. This is a time to rest. There are things that you can focus on controllables, like we tell our clients, and like, for example, a controllable can be water, just to give you guys an example, but you can focus on be like, okay, I want to be present with my baby today, but I also want to be really hydrated. And I want my nutrition to be on point. I know that I can still be present and focus on getting half a gallon of water in and some fruits today. You know, it doesn't have to be this regimented crazy thing. Like what you need to be focused on right now is your baby and your family and your body healing. You don't need to be focused on, okay, 6 weeks. Okay, we got 6 weeks and then I can hip thrust 300 pounds again. Like, no, that's just, you got to work back up to that. And your worth is not tied to a gym, to the weights, even to nutrition and water. Your worth is not tied to those things. If you're excited to do those things, then your body's going to respond positively. If you're like, oh man, I have to do my water, I have to do this, I have to do that. Oh my gosh, I'm so fat. Your body's not even if you are drinking the water, you're not really gonna be reaping all the benefits of it because you're so stressed about how you look,
And like you said, your baby can feel that.
and your baby can feel that.
Yeah.
So my
And
biggest
so
advice is just to accept where you are. That's the first part,
Mhm.
but knowing that your body has a purpose. You are a mother, you just gave birth, your body has purpose, and it looks the way it looks for a reason, it feels the way it feels for a reason. It's healing, like, you don't need to go hammer down in the gym right after you have a baby, you just
and
don't.
weight loss is not always conducive to producing milk.
No,
So just remember your body is still operating to feed a baby.
and also, whenever you breastfeed, just a little side note, whenever you're actively producing milk and breastfeeding, you're actually burning body fat, like, you'll be hungrier too because your body is it's working really hard to produce that milk and
Yeah.
your body temperature's up. And just
To
know that
nourish it.
and like if you don't want to breastfeed, that's we're not trying to push breastfeeding on everybody, but just know that in order to have a healthy breast milk supply, you have to be nourished and healthy and not stressed out.
Mhm.
And then in turn, your body is going to be working harder, which actually helps you burn body fat. Like
Mhm.
some people will literally drop so much baby weight just because they're breastfeeding. You can
Mhm.
look up studies on it. It's really neat. But
Yeah.
yeah, little side note.
Yeah. I think that's really, really important. And we can get into the why behind why you do things now. So I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, but your reason why, if you're doing something, whether it be eating a certain way or waking up at a certain time or drinking a certain amount of water, going to the gym, doing cardio, doing your steps, if you're only doing it for the physical manifestation for the body, it can create feelings of restriction. It can create a poor relationship with whatever that thing is. And oftentimes we tie it to our worth, right?
Mhm.
But if you're doing it because you love yourself and you're doing it to honor your body and you're genuinely trying to find joy in the process and falling in love with the process and not needing an external result, that's going to feel very empowering. And so when it comes to, let's say, tracking food, for example, a lot of clients will come to me and I'll let them know, like, you're gonna be tracking your food, you're gonna be using My Fitness Pal, you'll be measuring out your food, and there's immediate a fear response. Like, "Well, I've done that in the past, I felt really restricted, I almost felt like I was gonna develop an eating disorder." I'm like, "Okay, well, why were you doing it?"
Mhm.
To lose weight. Well, there you go. You're tying it to your worth, and then you're creating this whole negative cycle of emotion and unworthiness. But if you're doing it to learn, I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm not asking you to hit precise numbers. I'm just asking you to track your food, to hold yourself accountable and learn what your body needs.
Mhm.
Because we honestly don't know until we start learning. That's knowledge is power. So when you understand different foods, not just the protein, carbs, and fats, but you can look at the potassium in there. You can look at the iron, you can look at the calcium, you can look at the sodium, you can look at all kinds of things in My Fitness Pal, and then you can recognize certain fruits higher in sugar don't have as many nutrients. Other fruits maybe have higher in fiber and even more nutrients and lower calorie too. You learn about different proteins, and you can also, if you're not going to the bathroom every day, you can look at fiber. There's so many things that you can learn. And so it just goes back to why you're doing it. So could you maybe tell us a little bit more about how you feel now when you do the whole process, when you do your cardio? Like, what are your thoughts before
Yeah.
you're about to go do cardio?
So just for a little context, I went to Cancun a couple of weeks ago. Had a blast, but totally out of my realm of my norm, like a very regimented normally. And so I was like, I'm gonna let myself relax. And then I felt relief when I got home. I had a great time on the vacation, but I felt relief to get back to my normal schedule, my water, my food, my
Yeah.
logging,
Yeah.
all those things. And so I think before, yeah, I would log and I was always trying to fit things in, like into my macros. And I'd be like, okay, how many Oreos can I have while I'm dieting? How many of much of this can I have? Can I fit, I don't drink soda, but we could use that as an example. Like, can I fit a Dr. Pepper in here?
Mhm.
Carbs is that gonna be, whatever. And now I do more of like what you said. I'm like, okay, what's gonna serve my body today? And
What does my body need? Yeah.
not that I don't ever have like a donut or something, but I know I rarely do now because I know how it affects my body. And even like you said, even certain fruits, certain vegetables, like I know that broccoli kind of makes me a little bit bloated, you
Mhm.
know? And so if I'm gonna have like if I want broccoli, I'll have it, but I might have like a bigger part will be like asparagus, and then I'll have like a little bit of broccoli instead of it being my whole half of my plate's broccoli, because I
Yeah, and you're
know.
not guessing too. That's the
Yeah,
cool part is when you track because you're trying to learn versus just gauge yourself and how great you are or how much you suck. You learn a lot and then you're able to make adjustments based off of how you want to feel.
yeah. And two, I used to use a lot of, like, artificial sweeteners and stuff, like,
Yeah.
in off season too,
Yeah.
and I don't know why I'm like, my stomach is hurting, I'm bloated, all this, and then we would talk about, okay, how many processed items are we eating, even the diet products, like protein bars and stuff, and we'll look back and say, "Okay, we did a check-in on April 9th, and you were really bloated," and then we switched to more like a clean whole food type of approach with, instead of the protein shake and the sweetener and, the protein bar and the beef jerky, so that's like 4 processed things, and then no telling what else I was eating. but we look and say, okay, you were really bloated this day. And then we omitted the shake and the protein bar, but we kept in the beef jerky. Next check in, you looked a lot better. Okay, so let's try to omit the beef jerky too. Are we still having bloating? And then the next week I look even better. Or let's say I look the same. Okay, the beef jerky wasn't the issue. Like it's little things like that that we can look at, but mine really was artificial sweeteners.
Yeah, same.
So, yeah, beef jerky, I do pretty good with beef jerky, but the artificial sweeteners, I was blown away because I'd been eating them for so long, and then we omit them, we would omit them, I don't know, like 4 weeks out from a show, 5 weeks out from a show, and then
You
all
drop like 5 pounds right away.
right, but it never clicked for me. I was just like, "Oh, it's just because we 'cause we're tightening up on certain things," like, but now in my even in my off seasons, in my day to day, I don't do artificial sweeteners, and the other day, let's say I had a protein bar, I think it was in the airport, and I was bloated. I was really
Yeah.
bloated. I got to
But there's
Cancun.
like a piece though, like there's a level of acceptance when you do have I had
You have to
protein
give it
powder
up.
last night and there's a level of acceptance and peace that comes with it because I know what I'm putting in my body. I have that knowledge because I've done the work, because I've tracked my food, because I have done something sustainable and I'm able to pinpoint what's serving me and what's not serving me. And so when I do have a protein bar or protein shake, I know damn well I'm going to be bloated for a day. And there's a level of acceptance. I'm not like, "Well, what's wrong? Why do I look fat? Why does my stomach look this way?" It's like, "No, dude, you chose to eat this food. It's totally
Yes.
fine. It's not the end of the
Yeah, you yeah.
world. You enjoyed it, and you're gonna look totally fine the next day, and it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You know, it goes back to why are you eating the things that you're eating? If you're just eating things to lose weight or look a certain way, it's going to give you a whole different set of emotions than if you're doing it because you want to nourish yourself and honor your body. And
Mhm.
so, one of my favorite examples now that I've told my clients multiple times. Jen's heard this story probably 6 times, but it's my Oreo story. And you guys, Oreos were my kryptonite. It was like my straight kryptonite. I couldn't have Oreos in the house. I could not just eat 1 or 2 Oreos. I would eat the whole sleeve, and I wanted milk. I wanted to dunk them in milk. And while I was eating them, there was a little sense of guilt that I would just push down. I don't wanna deal with you right now. And I would feel guilty after too, but I'd also be telling myself I was stuck in that restrictive mindset or scarcity mindset with food. So knowing that I wasn't supposed to eat the Oreos, I'm like, well, I'm not going to eat them after tonight. This is going to be the last time I have Oreos for a while. So I might as well go ham. And then I'd go ham and I felt like shit after. And I was bloated and I was gassy and not, all the cute things. Um, and whenever I wanted to lose weight, I would cut Oreos. I would just not have them in the house. I wouldn't eat them. And it was just for a result. But then I felt restricted by that. So I'd be like, oh, it sucks. Like, I can't have sweets right now. I can't have Oreos. I would miss them. I would think about them. And then as soon as I didn't care about my goals if my goals changed. So either I was in a reverse diet or a bulk, or I was just in that state of mind where I'm like, fuck the goals. I don't care. I would go ham on Oreos. And so now I don't eat Oreos, but I gave them up for a different reason. So the why has changed. And it's because I'm seeing food in a different way. My relationship with food has drastically changed. I'm not just seeing things for calories and carbs and sugars. I'm seeing it as a vibration or I'm seeing it as energy and something that serves my body or something that doesn't. And Oreos, in no way, shape, or form, serve me. Not my mind, not my body, not my soul. I can sit there and create stories about balance and that if I restrict them, then I'm gonna binge, I'm gonna have a bad relationship with food. Like that's just the ego finding reasons of why you want to keep your instant gratification.
Mhm.
So I didn't give up cookies, I just gave up Oreos. So I have cookies all the time, but the cookies that I eat, they're made from a company called Siete, and it's a company that they actually care about your health.
Mhm.
And they're not cutting corners. There's no seed oils. There's no gluten. There's no grains. There's no soy. They're not GMOs. And there's like 7 ingredients in them. Whereas you flip around the ingredients of Oreos and there's probably like 10 words you can't pronounce and you have no idea what they are. And yeah, and it's just like highly processed, highly refined, really doesn't serve me. And so I don't need to demonize Oreos and I don't need to have any kind of judgment for other people who do eat them because I ate them my whole life. But I'm just in a different space now and I see them in a different way, in a different light. And I can look at foods now and before I decide to indulge in them or to have them, like, is this gonna serve me? And
Yeah,
if the answer is no, then it's not that hard to not have that thing.
yeah,
It
I
feels
agree.
good. Yeah,
That's
it
how
feels
I feel with
good.
artificial sweeteners. Like I don't use any type of
Same.
artificial sweetener. And I think too, like you said, seeing food as a vibration. Like when I eat fruit, I
Mhm.
don't know what it is, but I love trying different fruit and it makes me so excited and so happy. So like you talking about like the sleeve of Oreos or whatever, like I don't feel like that when I eat like the processed food or whatever. Like it's already there, it's already ready, it's already just instant. Like for example, with like I really like mangoes, you kind of have to work to eat a mango. You know, like you've got to peel it and you've got to slice it and it's slimy and it's hard to handle and
And it gets
like
stuck in your teeth.
yeah, I guess you have to do a little bit of work to eat a mango, right? But I enjoy it. I'm not like, no, that's too much work to eat a mango. I'm like, no, this process is about to be dope. Like I'm
I'm
about
about
to
to
get
fucking
mango.
go in. Give me
Okay,
that fucking mango.
put some tahini on here and it's going to be fun,
Ooh.
it's gonna be exciting. And so I think being excited about your food is really important. And I
And
use,
it's a different type of excitement. I want to pause you real quick because there's an excitement of I'm going to indulge in something that I quote unquote shouldn't. And then there's a whole layer of shame and guilt that either you're aware of it in that moment or you're not, but it's there. As soon as you understand when what foods are serving you or not serving you, then there's gonna be some level of judgment whenever you're not honoring yourself. And so you could pretend that that's not there, but it's still there. It's still gonna affect you. It's gonna affect your vibration too. So when you're eating the fruit, it is just you're just vibing high. There's no shame, there's no guilt. You're like, "Ooh, this tastes so good. I'm excited for this process. It's gonna be so good for my body. I'm getting all these nutrients," you know?
yeah, exactly. And that brought me to another thought. I just lost it, but I'll find it again. But basically, I used to, when I was talking about fitting in the macros,
Mhm.
like, okay, what can I fit in? And that was stressful to be like, okay, well, I can have 1.5 Oreos. And I would literally do that. Like, what?
I see. I didn't even have you had discipline. That was something interesting that was very different about us is we both had a really poor relationship with food and exercise at one point, but you were actually very disciplined. Like you actually did starve yourself. Where like I would try and I would miserably fail. I would try to starve myself and then I would last like a few hours and then I'd end up binging. So I end up eating way too many calories. Or I would tell myself just one Oreo. I had zero trust for myself. So I was already downing myself right out the gate, but I would say just one Oreo, maybe just two. And then next thing you know, I'd eaten 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would literally only eat, like, I would like cut an Oreo.
I don't know how you did that. Like that's willpower.
I would, so a funny thing, which I do not recommend this, but I could, like, I'm short, so I couldn't like reach, like, our trailer was really tall and our cabinets were really tall. And so I would have like Coda like get up and put the Oreos on like the tallest part of the cabinet. And
I
those were
used to
my,
do that.
yeah, like him and Silo had their own like their cabinet. I didn't even care about their cabinet. I never even looked in their cabinet, but I had a cabinet.
Yeah.
And it was my bad cabinet, like, it was my bad snacks cabinet,
Hmm.
and that's what the thought was from earlier is, when you go get pizza or a burger or something, but, like, you just meal prepped your food, and you're like, "Oh, well, let's just go be bad." Like, "Ugh, we're
Hmm.
so bad for doing this." But, like, you make it a joke, but, like, deep inside, you're like, "Man, I should probably eat my meal prep." You
Yeah,
know?
you do feel there's like an actual shame and guilt, and that's the joke. There's a little truth behind every joke, right? So that's the truth is that you are
Burger
being bad. You are mad at yourself.
are bad. Yeah, like, we're not saying burgers and cookies are bad, but it's
Well, I eat them all the time. That's the
what do
cool
you
thing is, so Justin and I, we don't eat seed oils anymore. So there's also, as we literally as we age, more and more research comes out. So we're talking about artificial sweeteners. Back then, I didn't know they were bad.
mhm,
There was no proof, and there's still not very much research that proves that artificial sweeteners damage the gut or cause inflammation and bloating or that they're cancerous, etc. There's really not much proof. My gut tells me that's some bullshit and I don't touch them anymore. But, that's a different story. But the same thing with seed oils. Like that's very new for me where up until the last year, I didn't ever think twice about seed oils. And now more people are talking about it. Like even I listen to Joe Rogan, and it's just, I'm hearing more and more guests that talk about seed oils and why they're so harmful to your body. And so there's an app called Seed Oil Scout. This is not sponsored, but they should definitely fucking sponsor me.
oh,
With how much I talk about it. Yeah. So the Seed Oil Scout, you just put in your zip code and it literally pops up like all the restaurants in your area. So when I put in mine, over 100 restaurants will pop up in Austin, probably more than that. And it will have, if it's a dark green check, no seed oils on premise. You're good. If it's a green check, it's like, oh, they usually only use seed oils for like a couple of things. Maybe their pies and maybe their cookies or something, but the majority of their food's cooked in olive oil or avocado oil. And then if it's orange, it's like, be cautious. If it's red, it's like, don't fucking go there.
yeah,
And so there's a food truck in Austin called Ziki. It's literally a food truck. It is literally fast food. It is so fast. And they're so good. And there's no seed oils. They cook everything in tallow. Everything is naturally sourced, all organic, regenerative beef, etc. And they will close down. Like they're closed this week because they weren't able to get, I don't know what ingredient it was. Maybe it was beef, maybe it was the tallow, maybe it was eggs, who knows? But they weren't able to get proper ingredients. So they're like, well, we're not going to serve bad food. We're not going to serve toxic ingredients or ingredients that aren't the best. And so they'll literally close down. They have like 5 or 6 food trucks throughout Austin. And it's basically, you might as well call it a restaurant because of how much traffic they do or how much traffic they have. But the point is, we eat burgers and fries all the time. Like,
mhm,
he'll get a fried chicken sandwich, I'll get chicken strips. Like, we eat quote unquote fast food, but it's from somewhere where it's actual food. You know what you're eating, you know what you're putting in your body. Yeah, maybe it's not as low in calories as some other options, but I don't feel guilty when I eat it. I'm like, I'm still getting so many nutrients from this. I'm still nourishing my body in so many ways. And I don't have to worry about the calories right now. That's not my main priority. So I still eat cookies, I still eat candy, I have chocolate all the time. I have popcorn, I have like churro chips from Siete. I have salt and vinegar chips, or there's even like, I don't want to call them Doritos, but like basically their version of Doritos, and they're literally better. They're so
mhm.
good. I love that brand too. They need to sponsor me too. But you have options. You just have to look into it. That's really what it comes down to.
And I think too, going back to just how you feel. So like even
Yeah.
though the food trucks that y'all love are closed, like you know why they're closed and you're
Hmm.
like, like for example, like McDonald's or something like they ain't ever gonna close.
No.
They don't care what they have to do to get that food out, they're gonna get it out. And like initially I think people are like, yeah, like serve the people. But no, like your vibration is gonna be more
You're
attracted.
eating cardboard.
Yeah. Like, how do you feel when you eat McDonald's? Everybody think about it, be honest. Not that great,
Yeah.
right? But when you eat this food truck, you're like, "Oh, I feel so good about what I'm eating." And even when they're closed, like, you're like, "That's okay." Like,
It's okay.
they're getting their tallow, they're getting they're sourcing their foods that we eat to keep us healthy.
It's literally validation that this place is a good place.
Yeah,
That they
and
would rather close down and not make money for a week than give their customers something that's not healthy. And so you can start looking at all kinds of companies in that way, from the clothes that you buy to the products that you buy to your makeup to the food that you put in your body, the gym that you go to, the grocery store that you shop at. There's companies that serve themselves and there's companies that serve others. And when you purchase and consume from companies that serve others, it feels really good. And you're going to notice your vibration raises. So, yeah, it all goes back to the why. Why are you doing it? Why are you eating the places that you're eating? If you are restricting calories, why are you restricting that food? Why are you going to the gym? Why are you doing cardio? And if you can really tap into that, and sometimes, let's say it's cardio, for example, if your why is only to lose weight and you absolutely hate cardio, then maybe it's not the right step for you to even do cardio. Maybe you just dial in your nutrition and focus on steps and your water goal and take your vitamins and get out in the sun, and your body is going to thank you for doing that. And same thing with restricting food. You can restrict food because you want to have a healthier body and because losing body fat will be healthier for you. But if you're doing it because of the look and it's tied to your self-worth, it's a whole different story. So just having it in your awareness, I think that's the most important thing here is Jen, you and I are talking about all of these things, and the listeners might be like, well, now what? You're telling me I have an unhealthy relationship with all these things. Now what? Well, that's the first step. And that's the most important step is actually looking at it and looking at it for what it is. And when you can have some level of acceptance of that, you don't have to judge yourself because most Americans are in a very similar place. Very, very similar. That's why over 70% of our population is overweight. We don't even know what a healthy body looks like anymore. We see
Mhm.
someone that's actually a good body fat and we think they're too skinny. We're like, eat a burger. And it's like, actually, no, 70% of us are overweight. And so,
I am eating burgers.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's so funny. Yeah, so just I think just having it in your awareness is the most important thing, and then you can just start to make slow changes over time. So just the next time you go to the grocery store, well, one, you can ask yourself, what grocery store do I want to go to? What grocery store is going to have more foods that are healthy for me? Like a lot of grocery stores don't have an organic section or have any organic foods, and so that could be a step. And or the next step could be looking at some of the ingredients in your food. Or the step could be choosing what fast food or what restaurants you want to dine at. So
Mhm.
there's lots of options. You have lots of different routes that you can take, and everyone's journey is going to look different. But the most important thing is just starting it.
Mhm. And if you felt a little triggered by anything that we said, that's good. It's
It's
good if
good.
you're like, oh, well, I eat Oreos every night. Like, what's wrong with Oreos?
Yeah.
Nothing inherently wrong with Oreos, but like Gina said, go back to how you feel. Like, what is your goal? What is your intention? And
Hmm.
how do you feel when you're eating these foods? How do you feel when you're dining at these restaurants? And know too, like Gina said, we started there too.
Yeah.
And our clients, almost every single one of our clients, besides, I feel like we have been attracting more clients that are kind of already on their journey, like we are.
Hmm.
But we still have clients that are straight up beginners. They just have the awareness that they want different. They have the awareness that they want change. You
Hmm.
don't have to be this like unicorn human being to do all these things. And you don't have to do it all at once. You can start a program and just do steps and water. You can start a program and just do water and eat more fruits and veggies and still have the Oreos. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be like Gina or me or our client Sarah. You don't have to be like anyone. You have to be like you, but have the awareness of what you want and what do I want that's different than what I'm doing now.
And how can I take one step in that direction?
One step. Like that's how it starts, and then it's a snowball effect. Because
Yeah.
when
And
I
when you
started,
take that approach, it's sustainable.
mhm, and you're slowly adding things over time. It's not this 12-week plan, this diet plan, like this is your life. Of course,
Mhm.
like you have a whole life to live. You can't take all the steps in one day. Like
Yeah.
we can't crowd ourselves with everything in one day. You have a whole life to learn and live. Even just this past year, I have so much more, like you were saying about the seed oils, like I wasn't thinking about that like 3 years ago. I didn't even, I didn't care necessarily about seed
Yeah.
oils.
Yeah.
I was still very much trying to fit in like just different products, diet products even, like buy artificial sweeteners and sugar-free syrup. I remember one time we cut out my sugar-free syrup for some reason, probably because I was not well, bloated and stuff. And I was like, "Ah, but that's the only thing getting me through this. That's the only thing that's like, that's the one thing I look forward to." And I'm like, you look forward to fake syrup?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people will say that they don't want to give something up because they want to have a good relationship with food. I'm like, okay, well, how is your relationship with food right now? If you're truly honest with yourself, because right now you're having all this flexibility, you're squeezing in all of these treats and all of the fast food and all the junk. Be honest with yourself. Is your relationship with food good and balanced right now? And if it is, then cool, keep doing what you're doing. There's no need to come reaching for help, right? No, but the fact of the matter is your relationship with food probably isn't good and it probably isn't balanced. So don't focus on the action steps. Don't focus on the fear that it may make you feel restricted. Focus on your why. And if you can just really, really lean into why you're doing things, that's the most beneficial step that I think that you can take.
And I
So,
think that's what we're coming back to is like, why are you doing it? What is
yeah.
serving you? Like why? And
Mhm.
ask yourself that and write it down or talk to yourself outside. I mean, it sounds crazy, but like, okay, why do I want to compete? Like what do I want to just look good? Do I just want to look like these competitors? Or like why am I doing this? For me,
Mm.
it's because I love being an athlete. I love training. I love the process. I love the journey. I love learning about bodybuilding. I love teaching our clients about muscle and bodybuilding and learning different ways you can shape the body and seeing that package that's just so amazing. And it's not about looking that way forever. It's getting to a point where you're like you really had to push yourself and get somewhere. Like I genuinely just love being an athlete. But
Well,
before
yeah.
see you and see other pros or even just NPC competitors that just looked incredible. I'm like, I just want to look like that. If I can just walk around and look like that, I'll be good. And at the time I didn't know like they look like that for a show, and some people can carry that physique year round and have that level of leanness, but for most people, you're not going to be shredded to the bone year round. And that was what I wanted was I just
Yeah.
want all the time.
Well, some people will come to me wanting to compete, and I ask them, well, why do you want to compete? And they say, well, I want to prove it to myself. I want to prove it to myself that I can do something hard. I want to challenge myself. Like you're trying to prove your worthiness. You're
Mhm.
still attaching this goal to your worthiness. And if you can stay disciplined, if you can achieve this look, if you can follow a plan, then you're going to be confident. Then you're going to feel like you're enough and worthy.
Yeah.
So that's something that you can actually take a step back and question.
And yeah,
So,
like where's your confidence during the process? Like, are you waking up and looking in the mirror
and you
and
feel good. That's something funny about me. I look in the mirror and I'm like, damn, you look good. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not like, oh, you're going to be ready in time. I don't know if the judges are going to like this. I don't know if my legs are too big for bikini. Like, I look in the mirror and I'm like, damn, girl. But I do want to wrap this up because we're a little short on time. But I have one last question for you, Jen. It's a fun question. I'm going to just start asking my guests this question at the end of each podcast. But if there is a genie in a bottle that could grant you one wish, and you cannot wish for more wishes, don't be one of those people. What would you wish for? It could be a superpower, it can be money, it could be a skill.
Hmm. I would wish for oh, this is gonna make me cry. I don't know why. Um, I think I would just wish for everyone to have like sound mind and like
Mm,
universal like consciousness. I think that's what I would wish for people to truly know themselves and just have that knowing within themselves, if that makes sense. Because
wow.
I've been so blessed to know myself, but I haven't really known myself that long. So it's like, and I'm still getting to know self, but I think that would be my wish is like universal consciousness and just happiness for everyone.
That's super dope. And the cool thing is you're helping the world take a step in that direction.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Jen. I'm happy to have you again. We'll definitely be on another podcast together within the next week or two. So I'm excited for that. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.